Well, thank you everyone for attending another edition of our weekly Wednesday series where I get to have the opportunity to get to learn a lot of different markets all across the country. The Bay Area is, as you guys know, is pretty unique and a little bit different, but it's always interesting to hear like what has been going on, especially given different states and different cities have been opening up from the shelter in place at different timetables. So before we get into the local dynamics, I'd love to get a little bit of an intro from the both of you guys. So Danielle, do you want to go first, share a little bit of how long you've been in the business, your production levels of last year, and then we'll go with Chris after that.
So I got into the business in 2016. I was in a account management role with a tech company and was just kind of fed up with doing the same thing day in and day out. Bored is probably the better word to say. I wanted a little bit more of a challenge. And my mother had been in real estate for 11 years at that point, and she was starting to help my friends buy homes. And she would be like, look I sold your friend this home. Look at what I made. You could do this too. So my mother actually did pay for my real estate school. And I got licensed in 2016 and I've been doing it ever since. So we work as a team now. We're a mother-daughter team. It's just the two of us. And last year I sold around 25 homes. I should have wrote down my volume. Probably for around 5 million plus, somewhere around there. So yeah, it was a good year, and I hope to do double that this year.
Awesome, very good. And Chris, how about on your end?
So I've been a realtor for 23 years. I have 7 members on my team, and about 4.5 years ago, moved from Scottsdale into Sedona, Arizona, which is a population of 16,000 people. We had no market penetration, and last year our team was #1 in sales volume at 86 million, and we're on track for 100 million.
Wow. That just gave me the chills, Chris. That's awesome.
That's awesome. So Chris, why don't you start by sharing why make the move from such a large area like Scottsdale to Sedona? And did you already have a team in Sedona at that time? Did anybody move with you?
No, I was actually by myself moving into Sedona. I was the poster child for no bricks and mortar, Spencer, and believed that I could take a big brand name into a small town and with the right strategy, put it together. And in the last 4.5 years, I've added the team members. So now there's 4 others helping me because I couldn't do it by myself.
Very nice. Okay, wow, that is amazing. And were there any, I know different markets may have, high producing agents, top producing agents. Did you encounter stiff competition, or was it you had this own game plan, especially given a town is so small? Like, I'm sure everybody knew each other already.
So I always say this, Spencer and Danielle, it was brutal. I would get calls at night, 11 o'clock, your sign's in my yard. My tires were slashed. I'm not making that up. So it was brutal, but I love competition. So I'm like, bring it on. And then I'll never forget the name. This one gal, top producer, comes up to me. She says, you will never make it in this market. And I said, watch me.
Watch me. I love that. And you did.
Right on.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Nice. And Danielle, on your end, in the Cleveland market, like how has it been working with your mother? Do you see her kind of taking a step away from the business over time? Like, is it you're going to be not getting all her clients? Like, what's the relationship there?
It's so funny that you asked that, because we did have a conversation just last week about, what's our future? Originally, when we started this team 2 years ago, I was in the business for about a year before we had decided to join up. Obviously, that's not a decision that comes lightly. My mom did not want us to in any way to hurt our relationship. But turns out we do work very well together. It just is so perfect because my mom is a high C. Well, she's an SC, but so she loves the compliance side of things and all the paperwork, which I hate. So from here on out, my mom doesn't see herself being in the business till she's 70. She's in her, mid 50s now. She'll probably be mad at me for saying that. So, maybe 10 plus more years or so. But eventually she would like to take more of the administrative, transaction coordinating role, and kind of taking on that, where I'll go out and I'll show the homes and stuff like that, because she's been doing that for 15 years now. Some people love that part of it. Some people are happy to be at their computer, working hard, and she is just a hard worker. So yeah, I think that's kind of what our future will be. We're not really looking to grow the team like we once thought we were going to, just because the accountability piece, it's already so much to be accountable to each other. Chris, you probably understand this all too well. It's a lot to have to worry about, all the people on your team. And my mother and I are both a little bit of worriers. So we would really want to make sure that they were happy. So yeah, that's kind of the future for us.
Nice. And do you guys have it divvied up in terms of what you guys do, or is it really a mother-daughter business, but you're kind of working separately? I mean, different demographics, things like that.
Yeah, that's a great question too. So we do have our own clients, like our own spheres, but a lot of our sphere also intersects family, friends, family, even people that I went to high school with, my mom started working with before I was even in the business, and they choose, they've worked with her before, they would like to work with her again. So for situations like that, we work on some things together, but a lot of our business we also do separately. And like I said, she does well with the compliance side of things. So we actually did have a talk recently, and I'm going to start paying my mother to do that for me.
You're going to give her that transaction coordinator fee.
Yeah, exactly. We were thinking about hiring someone, and she was like, I would much rather do it for you. Sorry, right. Chris, didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, that's a smart thing to do. I say, if you don't like it, let's find somebody who can do it for you and pay them a fee.
And she likes it, so it works out well for me.
Nice. And yeah. Chris, so you have a team, and I'd love to understand, when was the point when you realized you needed one, in terms of being able to scale? Like, what was that? Was it a breaking moment, or was it like, okay, I can do this much volume, I'm getting either too stressed, or I just know I needed to hire these people? And from your experience as growing your top producing team, what were some of the lessons learned that you might be able to share others that are looking to start up a team?
Sure. So my rule of thumb is 20 transactions. That's what I can physically do. I like to list. My specialty is listing. So if I get to 20 listings, then I'm going to hire a new person, and I'll keep adding as those transactions grow. And then what I learned, and Danielle's experiencing it, is that if you don't like to do something, you need to hire it out immediately and get a good assistant. The two things I recommend is we work our CRM, which happens to be Follow Up Boss to a T. And then we definitely have the support system in place. So example, a lot of people were moaning about social media. Oh, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I said, okay, we'll hire somebody to do that for you. So we hire somebody to do that for them. We have a transaction coordinator, and then we also have a listing kit specialist who puts together all the listings and gets everything paper ready for us. So
I love that.
Delegation, actually.
Yeah, leverage is key in this business, right?
And then Danielle, you can't worry. You got to let it go. You got to let your baby go. And say, don't worry about it. Trust.
It takes time. I will say that to take your emotions out of things. I am a highly emotional person to begin with. So for me, I really have to try to separate those things, because if I become emotional, then my clients will see that, and it could affect things. So I'm working on it, Chris. I am.
And Chris, how did you learn to implement those specific models or training programs? Was it through any sort of mastermind or just courses, or was it just trial and error?
No, it was a lot of learning, Spencer. I mean, I spend 1/3 of my time in classes or, different designations. I believe you have to learn from the best. So I would shadow some of the best agents. I paid agents to follow them. I remember going up to Seattle to work with an agent just to see how she did her marketing. You know, I think you got to reach out to the great agents to get the information and then just keep learning.
Definitely. This is a career that you have to forever keep learning. And yeah.
That is great. And so I didn't ask is what is the average price points for both of you guys in your respective markets? Danielle, you want to go first?
Yeah, so I actually looked them up for you. So I made sure that I had I looked them up as of this morning. So Cleveland, we have, you know, I work in the greater Cleveland area. So there are probably 3 to 4 counties that I service alone. I'll go up to an hour. The most I've gone is an hour and a half for a client. You know, because if someone gives me a referral, I don't want to pass them off to somebody else. I want to take good care of them. So for Cuyahoga County, which is where Cleveland is actually located, the average price point's $188. For Lake County, which is where my office and I'm located, is around $176. And then a big county as well that I work in, which is probably a little bit more, I would say, not rural, but a little bit more country, less suburban, more land per se. That average price point's around $298.
Okay, nice. And then Chris, how about on your side?
So the average sales price would be $575. 575. On the luxury level, it's about 1.3. Land is about 189,000 for parcels, and condos are about the same square, 287 a square for condos, and our month supply is about 5.2 months on the single family home.
Okay, interesting. So it does take a while to sell houses if that's the case. Like, what's the length of time that, especially you're doing a lot of listings?
Right. So on the luxury side, it could be 11 months. I have one closing Friday that we had it on the market for 1.7 months. And, you know, $30,000 later on the marketing on that, we finally got a contract. I tell people they never realize how much money goes into some of these large estates and luxury. So agents going into luxury say, be ready, because if the longer it sits on the market, that's taking out of your pocketbook.
Right.
If the average length of time is that long, how do you decide or determine any sort of adjustments, whether it's different type of marketing or a potential price adjustment? Like, it's, you know, it doesn't move very quickly. So I'm sure there's some levels of anxiousness as well over time. How do you deal with that if it takes that long to sell?
So I'll say for the first part of it, so let's say I'm going in under that luxury market. My goal, personal goal for all my clients is 60 days, I get you an offer. That's my goal. So if in that 60 days I can show the numbers and the analytics and we don't have an offer, then I've got to change my marketing strategy and or do a price adjustment, right? The other thing I want to build into my listing agreement is an extension on that listing, especially if I'm in luxury and it's 11 months supply, then I want a 2-year or I want a 1 year with some kind of handcuff clause to push them into the second year, because I don't want to lose that listing in year 2 after I've spent 15 grand, or maybe I take a retainer.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yep. And I was going to say, I haven't really broken into the luxury market per se. I think my highest price point was right under 400,000. Now in Cleveland, you know, that is higher budget, because you can buy a single family home in the 1-200s, you know, no problem. So still trying to break into that market, but it is a little bit different in the Cleveland area. We don't have as much luxury real estate as other places would be.
If you did want to break luxury, my biggest tip on that would be to go to the Institute for Marketing Luxury Homes.
And I'm writing this down.
Luxury home marketing specialist designation, because they'll teach you how to do it. They do the, you know, step by step, and their program has got to be the best one out there for learning luxury and how to break into it and how to take the materials to that next level.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Wonderful. And so, Chris, when it comes to like the split between luxury in your area versus, I guess the average homes, what percent are you doing that's luxury versus average today? And do you prefer one over the other, given luxury does take a lot longer?
Good question.
Trick question.
It's a great question. I love luxury, but I will say if I only did luxury, I would have no food with meals. So my break off is 30% luxury, 70% the rest.
Yeah.
And, we just, it's a different marketing campaign. It's a different system that we put in place for luxury compared to what we do for single family under 1.1 million.
What are examples that you're doing actually differently from a marketing? Because you mentioned the cost is much higher. Like what are some examples that you're doing?
We'll do, you're the tech realtor. So on the single family homes under 1.1, we're going to do more social media, Google. With the affluent over 1.1, we're going to do more print advertising. And everybody's like, oh, print advertising. Well, it works like Jet Set Magazine or New York Times. We've got to get some presence there because our Wall Street people from New York and New Jersey that are importing here, or even California, they are still picking up digitally or, paper.
Yeah.
That's
really interesting to hear. Yeah.
Yep.
And what are the drivers of Sedona in general? Like, is it vacation homes? Are they living there and commuting somewhere else? Like, what's the demographic and the clientele that you typically see?
You've hit it right. It's a vacation destination, but it's also, we're seeing now, hey, look at COVID. Everybody's kind of freaking out in New York and New Jersey, San Francisco, Californians. I mean, they're pent up demand. They want now, they're like, if I can live anywhere, I'm going to go live in the Red Rocks and I want to be on the trails. I want to do my yoga. And if Twitter allows me to live in, a nice place and I don't have to go to work, I'm moving to Sedona.
Yeah. I've heard great things about Sedona.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still, I think, relatively hidden gem. With it, is that safe to say, or the word is starting to get out?
It's the word is out. The tourism is about 2.2 million people a year, but it's a wonderful place. It's beautiful, and the people want to be here. So the real gem are the people here. So it's
interesting. And what's the closest airport to Sedona? Like a larger airport?
Sky Harbor down in Phoenix, or you can do shuttle service out of Flagstaff, Arizona, which is an hour drive.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Not bad.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then Danielle, how about on your end? I know at least from the Bay Area, I know several people that have investment properties in Cleveland. So, but is that the majority? Is that a very small amount? Is it mostly just local people buying? Like, what's the driver of Cleveland?
You know what? I think it is a good mix of all of the above. We see more so in the last, 5 to 10 years, especially with more tech companies moving out of Silicon Valley. We're seeing more companies come into Cleveland and start their roots here. So we're getting, people that are, I can't think of the word that you would call those people that would be coming from somewhere else off the top of my head, but people coming from out of state. And then because the investment price is just so unbelievably low, barrier of entry here, we have a lot of investors that come in, a lot of companies that pick up those, dirt cheap properties and flip them and put them back on the market. And then of course, your single family, homes and I do a lot of residential real estate. Yet I do help a lot of investors. They're kind of shocked when they hear the average price point, when you compare it to, something out their way. A lot of the people that I work with are from California, specifically. So yeah, I've definitely got more into investing in the last couple of years. I was just on a 2-hour call with an investor from California before this, going over potential properties, because he's doing a 1031 exchange with a property he has out in San Jose. So it's just kind of cool to see where I can go with this.
Nice. And so, Chris, can you share what was the environment like in Sedona pre-shelter, and what is it like now? Is it a net benefit that you see, or is it, what's the market conditions like pre and post shelter?
So pre-shelter, we were strong. We're going into, the last couple of years have been super strong in terms of a seller's market and about 281 to 284 square. So after, we start seeing this and of course COVID hits, and then we have the curfew and the looting down in Scottsdale kind of put some brakes on, but we saw more people say, hey, I don't want to be in Scottsdale. I don't want to be in California. I don't want to be in New York. I don't want to be in New Jersey. I want to come here. So our pent-up demand right now is huge. Our inventory is low. We're waiting for people to come mid-June into July into August. Our vacation rental market is off the charts. The projections for June, which is usually a hot month, it's up as high as 80% occupancy for short-term rentals. For our investors, the luxury investor market is huge. So they'll enjoy their vacation home, and now they have the opportunity to rent it out. So, that's kind of our landscape right now. I'm loving it. So I'm telling everybody it's probably going to be our strongest year ever.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Were there any surprises coming out of the shelter in place, as in positive or negative? It seems like it may have been a pleasant surprise that things have picked up as fast as it did, but we'll have to get your thoughts.
Well, I think it's been super positive. Like I said, my huge estate, which was my longest listing ever, getting that under contract during COVID. I mean, I was like, yes. And that was interesting because we did a virtual open house on that one, invited agents to the virtual open house. The agent sees it, punts it to their client in New Jersey. New Jersey goes to Utah, then, drives down because we're driving distance, and sees it 4 times. So I think it's all positive.
Wow.
Interesting.
Very cool.
I actually have a segue question related to that kind of property. Do you find, because there's not that many offers, right? It's generally just one buyer that would take it off the market. How is the negotiation like for that when as a listing agent, you can't be like, well, it's been on for 10 months. I really don't have another buyer, but at the same time, the seller has a certain price in mind.
Right.
What's the mindset of that negotiation where I can't really leverage competition? How do you guys come to a balance typically?
So the mindset on that one was reading the people that were actually purchasing and doing a background on them to find out what their hot spots were. The negotiation actually came down to a Steinway piano. And it was because the family that was purchasing has a huge family. I backgrounded all of them, watched videos of them, and knew that this piano was going to be our negotiation tactic. And the sellers, of course, it's all the kids and the trustee, and the sellers didn't want to sell that piano. So I'm like, give the piano. I swear to God, this will work. And then when we get in the inspection period, you'll be amazed if you give the Steinway piano. So it was really terse. We got the piano in there, and guess what? In my whole career, over 1.1 million, and this is a $5 million estate, they didn't ask for one item on the inspection. Huge.
Wow.
That is huge. Yeah.
My hair is like standing up on my arms for that one. That's a lot.
10,000 square foot house on 15 acres, and not one thing was asked for because of that piano.
Wow.
That's huge.
That's
good
great.
for you. See,
That's amazing.
It's
right.
Were there, what you're doing, Chris.
You got to read people. You got to tell people
yes,
that's the secret. You have to know their personality type and how to adjust to their personality type as fast as you can.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. And Danielle, how about on your end related to pre-shelter and post-shelter? What changes have you seen? How is the market these days?
So I came into 2020 just on fire. I mean, it was my best year yet, starting out January, February. And I was excited. I was pumped. I'm like, I turned 30 this year. This is going to be my year. I have big goals. We have been in a low inventory sellers market for a couple of years now, and we've been seeing multiple offers. Not on every property, the really beautiful ones with all the updates and all the improvements. You see maybe a couple offers here and there. Well, going into COVID, Ohio did deem real estate essential. So luckily I was still able to work. I showed properties virtually via FaceTime. I showed properties in person and in face masks and gloves and booties and all the above. So real estate didn't really start or stop, I should say. But when things started opening back up, buyers started to feel more comfortable getting out there. And now we are seeing, like 7, 8 offers in a multiple, if not more. My mom just closed on a property that went 11,000 over asking. So overall, it's been very positive. The only negatives really are, trying to get those sellers to understand that like now is such an ideal time because the rates for buyers are incredibly low. I'm talking like high 2s, low 3s out in this area for people. And really the thing that is most concerning is making sure that the home's appraised. So that's the only thing that really is a negative right now, is all of those competing offers pushing that sale price above and beyond. You got to be careful. So maybe even writing in some sort of clause to protect your buyer or your seller, or whatever the case might be, whoever you're representing.
Well, how much % down are your buyers typically putting if they're concerned about the appraisal levels? Is it pretty stretched when they're buying, or how much % down are they putting?
I very rarely see people put 20% down these days. I would say on average, people are putting around 5, maybe 10. FHA buyers even lower. I think for people, what we're really doing in terms of negotiating is, a lot of times buyers need those closing costs nowadays. And it's become very predominant that they're asking for those. And when they do ask for closing costs, that becomes something that looks maybe less desirable to the seller. So I always recommend that we, bump up your offer a little bit to make up for it. But in terms of putting money down, I would not say that has grew. If anything, people are maybe offering more earnest money and asking for less. So I have as well, Chris, I've seen a lot of people ask for little to nothing on the home inspection lately, just because they don't want anything to stop them from getting that house, or, just because they are putting up a fight to get it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So Chris, I have a question for you related to that. And it's kind of hard for me to understand. So in the Bay Area, the sellers always do the reports up front. And so that way there's no need, or in the sense, or much less of a need for the potential back and forth and potential dropout. So I'd love to understand from both of you guys, because it is still kind of interesting for me, like why, especially for, let's say, a luxury home, why it wasn't a practice, or why not do the reports ahead of time so then they can see it? Like, what's the mindset as to why that's not happening?
You offer that as part of the listing, saying that's the best thing, have a certified house with the inspections up front. But the reality is, Spencer, people are cheap. And it sounds awful, but they don't even want to do the inspection prior to even listing it, because it costs money, right? So that's the only time I see it not done is when it's real expensive, or they'll say, gosh, then we got to get a roofer, and then we've got a well. Now we got to do a well. We got to get into water rights, and then we've got septics. We got to do that. It becomes a hassle to some of the sellers' point of view.
Right. Yeah, and to branch off of that, and for us, if a seller was going to do a home inspection and a bunch of things come up, well, then they would have to disclose all of those things, and that might not put them in a position that they would necessarily like. Not saying that I'm listing a bunch of crap properties, but little things come up here and there, and once then the buyers are going to be like, well, why did they fix it? So it just becomes kind of a nuisance more than something that's helpful to them.
Interesting. And from a percentage perspective, or just from a numbers perspective, how often do people get in a contract, they run the report, and they decide to back out? Is it common, or is it just more common that there's negotiations, as you just mentioned, Chris? Like, what's typically the result?
So we have about 20% fallout, Spence, because of the inspections. And you know what it comes down to? It comes down to the age of the home. It's the roof, it's the septic tank, and it's the well. These are the three things we see, and those can be very expensive. In our market, to replace a roof of 2,500 square feet can be $30,000. So, and that's because our contractors, we get the special Sedona price. So, you know, that's where it falls out, because the seller doesn't want to pay that much for a roof, and neither does the buyer.
Yeah.
How interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, it's definitely very interesting. What have you guys done differently? I mean, there's no doubt, I believe, there's an initial period that it did get very dark, as in it got very quiet because the whole country shut down.
Yeah.
So was there any new skills or new things that you guys did that you'll continue to do moving forward during that time or during this time? Or do you feel like just business is entirely the same and back to what it was? Danielle, you want to go first?
So for me, I mean, during those first couple weeks of April, it was definitely quiet. Eerily quiet, where you're starting to get scared of what is this going to mean for the next couple months. Where are we going with this? Is this going to be extended? Which it ended up being extended, the stay at home. So for me here, I was making care calls to all my past clients, just checking in. Hey, do you still love the home that you're quarantined in? And just following up and just being someone that can help and talk, not so much just calling them to ask for a referral or for business. I just really wanted my people to know that I cared and that I wanted to help them. Just coming from the contribution, I think it was all a very tough emotional time for people. So I tried to tread lightly and just show that I was here and I could help with anything that they needed. A lot of video, a lot of virtual communication. So I tried to make it as easy as possible on buyers, doing, still keeping the same process, still doing my buyer consultations, just doing them virtually. And really just setting people up to understand what kind of market we're in and that you can still buy a home. We could still get it done. We just need to pay extra special attention to your financing and your job, making sure you stay employed. Because I did have clients that had to unfortunately ask for a release from contract because they lost their job and they couldn't get loan approval. So it was tough for some people, but overall, I think it's been pretty positive. And I just tried to remain that positive person throughout all of this.
Right. Excellent. And how about you, Chris?
Virtual tours, virtual tours of the property have become our new staple. We were doing that a little bit, but never to the degree that this did for us. But I also decided, hey, I'm going to ramp up farming and add another 2,100 mailers. So, I'm ramping up, and then after this big estate closes, I'm going to go for another 1,000. So the goal from this, for me, is to just ramp it up. I mean, let's work harder and smarter than all the competitors, right?
Yep.
Excellent. What do you guys think will happen for the rest of the summer and the rest of the year? Any projections in terms of prices, inventory, buyer demand? What are your thoughts related to those metrics? Chris, you want to go first?
Buyer demand is high for us. We just got to get them out here. We need them to either drive here or fly here. The curfew's over in Arizona. Governor Ducey's lifted that, so that would just happen on the 9th. So we're ready. We've got people coming mid-June into July. The rental market, in terms of vacation rentals, are up. So I'm anticipating our luxury investors for third quarter and fourth quarter. And then I think the luxury market, I think we'll see some more houses come on the market in the higher level. And I think we're going to see more land sales because I think people aren't getting what they want, so they want to build it.
Are most of the land sales for the owner to make their own dream house, or is it more developer minded?
More of the person buying and turning it into their own dream home. So we're hooking them up with architects and contractors and getting them to build their dream home.
Nice. And how long does that typically take from just raw land to getting it done? Like, I'm assuming they had their plans ready to go, and it wasn't because of decision making from their end.
Many don't have the plans, so I tell people it's about a 2 to 3 year process if you don't have the plans.
Got it. Nice. And Danielle, how about you? What are your thoughts for the rest of the year?
So honestly, what I envisioned, just knowing what's going on now and everything that we're seeing in our current market, I think it's going to be an incredible summer. I think people are going to want to get out there. They're going to want to see homes. I'm working with a lot of new buyers just because rates are so phenomenal. We're seeing a ton of refinances in our market right now. So lenders are kind of, in over their heads per se. What I'm really just trying to keep posting about is the fact that we need listings more than anything. There's people that are on the fence. So I'll list next spring. People always think spring's the best market, but there really is no wrong time to buy. If anything, if you list during a not busy month, you have less competition. So you might even get more offers on your home than you would. I just think this is going to continue. I think we're going to see the same, just high buyer demand for homes and unfortunately low supply.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way, that we have basically a delayed spring than anything else, given we've had a complete lockdown for at least several weeks in all cities across the country, and some much longer. Like New York, I saw is finally opening up like phase 1.
Wow.
So their phase 2 might be sometime next month. So they've really clamped it down versus others are already in, I think, like phase 3.
Yeah, I think we're completely opened at this point.
Yeah.
More or less. Yeah.
What about Arizona? Where are you guys at right now?
We're open. The restaurants are open. The hotels are open. We're open. The only thing that just kind of put a damper on things was the 1 week curfew.
And we had that as well this past week.
8 p.m., right? So that was kind of a shocker.
Yeah.
Interesting. When you say the restaurants are open, are people just? So I smile because everything is completely locked down here in the Bay Area.
I know.
So what does that mean? I don't even know what that's like anymore.
Social distance dinner, so you're 6 to 10 feet apart. I don't know how the restaurant's margins look on that. All my guys that are chefs, they're like, Chris, we're at half of the restaurant and we're not going to make any margin. Our profits is terrible, except my pizza. The pizza places are off the charts for delivery, right?
Right.
So it's crazy. And then you've got the half masked people. So half of the store in the grocery store are masked, half are not. And then you have your masks, your arrows on the floor to follow.
Interesting. Yeah. So are masks not
people were coming up here, Spencer, and the hikers, they're not social distancing and they have no masks.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, masks are not required in Ohio. They're recommended, but not required. For restaurants, what we're seeing is a lot of plexiglass being put up. So if you're sitting at a bar, you might have 2 bar stools that are empty next to you and a piece of plexiglass in the middle as like a shield.
Oh, wow.
Or like Chris said, at restaurants, 6 to 10 feet between tables. So you might not be able to sit in 2 booths back to back. The middle booth might have to be empty. And a lot of takeout. The one thing that I'm hoping has helped these businesses is the fact that they're doing like curbside service, or they're even delivering if they can, just because they got to make money somehow.
Are there options that are happening where, let's say restaurants on a strip they're basically blocking off the road and they just basically have outdoor dining, or is that not an option right now with the city? Like, you guys see any of that kind of?
We have the outdoor dining, but we also have the indoor dining. And just like Danielle was saying, the plexiglass, you're seeing that. You're seeing the distancing. Masks are not required. Any showings that we do have face shields and masks. And we've branded the face shields and we've branded the masks, and we're handing them out because we want our brand out there. So,
nice.
let's take it and run with it.
Yeah.
Best of this.
I gotta get that supplier that you have. So
I will.
Yeah.
that too.
It's like, great. I love SedonaRealEstate.com. On that. These are great. We look like stormtroopers.
Yeah, right.
That is awesome. All right, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. So Danielle, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you and learn more about your market?
So, like give contact information or where to
Yes,
find
yeah.
me on social media?
Either whatever,
all the
whatever
above.
you want. Yeah, all the
So
above.
my name obviously here, Danielle Dooley, Realtor on Facebook. Our team, my mother and I's team, is called the Great Lakes Home Team, as we are next to all of the Great Lakes, specifically Lake Erie, which I didn't really touch on, but we do have, quite a few people that come and want to be by the lake. And my phone number is 440-488-1893. Feel free to call, text. I'd love to help anybody that's maybe interested in some Cleveland investments. The price point is definitely wonderful here for that, getting in at a low cost and a great return. So if you want to talk about that, I'd be happy to. Yeah, I think that's it.
All right, cool. Thank you, Danielle. And Chris,
Sure.
how about yourself? What's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Just go to our website, ilovesedonarealestate.com. We've got you once you go there.
Yeah, I definitely need to make a trip out. I'm sold to go.
I know. I need to go too.
I'm basically looking at a bunch of options, like what cities or what areas are going to be opened.
Yeah.
And then domestic travel will be pretty big initially.
Yep, I already have a trip booked.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Yeah, because
Yeah.
everybody's been clamped up for so long, so
Yep.
we got to escape. And I think Arizona is always going to be a popular option.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining, and it was great to hear both of the journeys that you guys are going on right now, and also learning about your markets. It's always fascinating for me to go through these interviews, especially since things are very different here in the Bay Area, just in terms of dynamics, in terms of procedures. So I want to thank you guys for that. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you at the next one.
So nice to meet you, Chris.
Danielle,
Thanks, everyone.
Hey, YouTube world. Thanks for tuning in. I'm glad that you dropped by. If you liked this video, please be sure to smash this subscribe button here. And if you want to see one of my latest videos, please choose this one here. Bye now.